Hi everyone, my name is Karen. I'm a registered clinical psychologist and I work with MSF as a mental health supervisor as well. So today I'd like to share with you about stress and anxiety. Specifically, what is stress, what is anxiety, and how do you monitor your distress level? So during this time of COVID, I believe that most of us are experiencing quite a lot of difficulties and challenges related to COVID, whether it's the restrictions and the limitations that it brought about for all of us. So many of you might be experiencing the state where you haven't seen your loved ones, including your families and your friends, for a while now. And the worst part of it is not knowing when can we see them again. And also finding ourselves being trapped in the same household with our employers, being reminded of work all the time, and maybe noticing that we have less and less time for ourselves and breaks to take outside because, again, of all the restrictions and limitations. So amidst all of that, we learn that as human beings, we have quite specific ways in response to stress, whether it's in our thoughts, emotions, behavior, or in our bodily sensations. There are some specific ways that we tend to react towards stress. And they include the flight mode, fight mode, and the freeze mode. So when it comes to flight, this is a state where we find ourselves wanting to just run, like the picture shows here. So we want to avoid, escape the situation that's causing us a lot of distress. Another state would be fighting. So that is commonly shown in situations like finding ourselves feeling more agitated and irritated to the point where we just start fights with the people around us, even though we might catch ourselves noticing that they might not be the direct cause of why we're feeling this way. So when it comes to freezing up, that would be a state where we find ourselves not knowing what to do and what to think about a situation, to the point where we just want to almost like surrender to the situation and just stay put. So when we experience a long period of stress and high level of stress, we find ourselves in a situation like anxiety. So when it comes to anxiety, it's important for us to recognize what it looks like specifically. So what we know about anxiety from research is that when anxiety starts to attack us, we have this increased scanning for danger. And that includes us scanning for all the situations that might impose us with a higher risk of not feeling safe, or that we would just narrow our attention to ourselves to make sure that we are safe, to the point where we start to exaggerate some of our experiences internally and externally. And we also notice that our physical symptoms would intensify when we are experiencing anxiety, such as our heart rates would increase, we would breathe a lot quicker, and our entire body just feels a lot more tense than usual. And then we start to find ourselves wanting to escape and avoid most of the time, especially when it comes to difficult situations. And sometimes we even find that even when it comes to our regular activities, we want to escape and avoid too. And when it comes to the short-term effect of all of that, we might find ourselves feeling more relieved for the time being. But then what we realize about anxiety is that in the long term, when we just keep to escaping and avoiding, we will experience an increase in the physical symptoms of anxiety. We feel more worried in our emotions and in our thoughts, and we start to lose confidence about coping as well. And then we will start to use more of those safety behaviors that basically makes us feel safe for the short term, but in the long run, maintains the vicious cycle of anxiety and even makes the vicious cycle worse than before. So learning about all of that has to do with anxiety, the key here is to, when you start to notice that all of this is happening to you in your day-to-day life, that's when you want to just reach out for professional support and help, because it's better for us to kind of clarify what state we're in with a professional than to just leave it alone or to ignore and avoid what we're experiencing in terms of all these new worries and anxious states. And I would like to introduce to you one very effective way of keeping track of our stress level, and that would be the subjective unit of distress scale. So to use this scale, I would recommend all of you to pay attention to how you feel. Maybe not on a day-to-day basis, but at least once a week, so that you know where you're at and that you can act in a helpful way to lower your distress. So for the first step here would be to rate according to how you experience your status and not so much what people observed about you. So we catch sometimes our friends telling us how we look like, such as, you look fine, you're always so happy, how do you do it? I'm worried, but you just look so optimistic all the time, like a ray of sunshine. But then I believe that one way or another, we all experienced before the state where we just don't feel that great, but then from the outside, we look okay. So the key here is to trust, respect, and honor your own rating, because there really isn't a right or wrong rating. Most importantly, it's just how you feel at that moment when you are using the scale. So another key here is to follow up in action. So after you notice that you rate yourself and then you notice that you are a 60 or above, then it would be the time to take a step back from all of your commitments and reflect on your own needs. And most importantly, to stop taking on more responsibilities, because we all know that there are some commitments that just have to go on, such as your full-time job of taking care of the family. So remember to be kind to yourself when you're noticing that your stress is starting to build up, and to prioritize your self-soothing activities, which is a concept that I'll be talking about in my next video. So again, please remember to at least rate your distress level once a week, so that you can have consistent and regular reflection of your state, and that you could follow up with the helpful behaviors to kind of lower your distress level. So hopefully through our video today, we learned a bit more about what stress and anxiety looks like, and how do we keep our well-being in check with the subjective units of distress scale. So I'll see you next time in our video about relaxation.